so many people that want to help celebrate this. This is really a panel to talk about the power of Black media. So I'm just super excited to do this, and super excited to see everybody's wonderful face. It's morning in LA. I'm not sure where everybody's at, but I'll say good morning and good afternoon, depending upon what coast you are on. Before we get started, I just want to kind of do a small introduction to everyone, and I'll just do it in the order that I see it on my screen. So we have the Jasmine Brand. She is co-founder of the Jasmine Brand. Thank you so much for joining us, Jasmine. We also have Joanna Ferreira. Hopefully I said that right. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Joanna, you are with Pop Sugar, and you also have a podcast in addition to that, correct?
No, I'm actually currently freelancing. So I'm contributing to Pop Sugar, Oprah, and Allura, and I have a podcast with my co-founder called The Truth Report, where we talk a lot about like racial disparities and issues that impact Black women.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, we also have Eunique Jones Gibson. Eunique, we follow each other on Twitter and talk often. It's so great to see you.
Good seeing you too.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. The name of my company is Because of Them We Can. It's a media company where we post, promote, amplify Black excellence 24/7.
Amazing, amazing. And we also have Angie Nwandu. Now, how are you, Angie?
I'm good. How are you? I still got the green couches. You know what I
mean? And Angie, for those who don't know, is the founder of The Shade Room. So a lot of movers and shakers in this space right now. So I'm really excited to talk to you. First, happy National Crown Day to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, when we talk about this, I know that this has been something we've been, doing a lot of things today to talk and bring awareness to the act, it coming into fruition, it being passed in several states, and now, actually celebrating this day, and hopefully more states will take this into action. But I want to talk a little bit about how Black media takes a part in this, because it is important to spread the message for this, but just on Black issues in general. I know, a lot of us are working within solely Black media, but we are also expanding into other areas where we would call it mainstream, and working with other organizations that may not necessarily have Black issues at the forefront. So I want to kind of talk about how we mesh those worlds a little bit better, especially now in this climate where it seems like all of a sudden now everybody wants to talk about Black issues. And I know that people are probably getting reached out to more, maybe feeling a little bit more valued, but also talking about how we can make this a more permanent stance in culture, and hopefully not just be something that's just brushed over because of a current movement. So let's start a little bit with Jasmine, with the Jasmine Brand. Jasmine, okay. Your site works primarily with African-American entertainment news, correct?
Right. So we work primarily with covering Black entertainment news, but entertainment news in general, pop culture, all that sort of stuff. And so I think now it just, we've always covered like social justice issues, Black issues, political issues, but now it's more prevalent because more celebrities are talking about it. Because, a few years ago, you would have like the Commons talking about it. John Legend, you had him speaking up, but now it's in to talk about social justice and these kind of issues like the National Crown Day, things like that we would talk about as much, but now more celebrities are talking about it. So it's kind of intersected.
How do you combine these two? Because I've noticed, especially with entertainment organizations, we have the news about August Alsina over here, right? But then we also have Breonna Taylor. How is there a way to mesh entertainment news with social issues, primarily on majority Black sites? Can you talk about that a little bit, Eunique?
Sure. I think it's giving everybody ownership of the issues. I think it's empowering the readers, our audiences, our fan base to understand that they have a role to play, whether it's with Justice for Breonna or what's happening at the National Crown Day. I think people want things that are relatable, but they also want to feel empowered to act. And so anytime that we can merge those two messages together, here's some content, but here's also something that you can do. This is a way that you can be empowered to effectuate change. Then I think that we're doing a service to our readership in doing that.
Thank you. Angie, can you speak to that as well? Because I know obviously on the Shade Room, you guys go from one side to the other. Has that been a challenge for your site as well, your page on Instagram, when you're posting things? Are you now feeling more like you have a responsibility to talk about more social issues? How do you manage that?
Yes, I think that it's a struggle. It's a daily struggle. It's a huge responsibility. And someone once told me, like, if, they asked me, they were like, is it easy to do this? And I was like, no, it's really not. And they said, if it was easy, I'd be worried, And so I think that it's just about the fact that you have to listen to the audience. Like you said, how do you handle a Will and Jada story, August Alsina story, and then know that Breonna Taylor is not getting that same type of love?
Right.
I think what we have found is that the entertainment brings in an audience of, the millennial audience. We have a strong 25 to 34, audience. And a lot of them, get their news from a platform like us or the Jasmine Brand. That's where they prefer to get their news, because it's a Black media organization. It's not CNN. It's not, they don't trust major organizations. And so I think that, sometimes the entertainment, they may be coming for Will and Jada, but the next post is about Breonna Taylor, or the next post is about this. And so what we've noticed is we've found a way to merge politics with our content. And so now our politics is actually some of our biggest, most engaged posts. Like they're really, it started off where they were like, politics, what's that? But then now, because of it being merged with the entertainment, they've been like, oh, well, okay, let's check up on the politics. Let's talk about it. It's getting 20,000 comments. It's getting all of the people are paying attention. And so to me, I've seen the protest videos do amazing. I've seen the videos, the updates on, that's what people are coming to us for now, primarily, right? And I'm sure the Jasmine Brand has seen that as well, that people are like, okay, well, give us the news. So for me, the best that I can do is try to balance it and try to post resources and try to just post about it more and give it the light and the platform that it needs. I think I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right.
It's the Black community is very complex. They're not a monolith. So some people feel like you should be doing this, and some people feel like you should be doing that. And so it's just really balancing it and saying, I'm gonna do the best that I can to report, as best I can. Really.
Jasmine, I know that you said that you guys have always kind of done that, more so now. Do you also agree that, like, obviously Black people aren't a monolith, but do you find that people are really tapping into these political stories the same with you as well?
Yeah, I do. I noticed that, we are more, it's like, it's the cool thing to do now is to know about what's going on with politics, to know who you support and why. And it is really a reflection. The coverage is a reflection of how regular people are, like how regular Black and brown people are. We don't just talk about August Alsina. We also talk about what's going on with Joe Biden, or we talk about what's going on with Trump. And then we're going to talk about Will and Jada. Like, we're just not one dimensional. So it makes sense that we kind of cover everything. And it honestly, it's easier to intertwine it with entertainment news, because the celebrities are talking about it. Like, you go on Kim Kardashian's Twitter page and she's talking about prison reform. Like, it's easy to intertwine it because they're talking about it more. And now it's even more popular. You have people like Trey Songz, who we never really saw talk about political stuff, right, or Black lives and stuff like that. You have these celebrities and these artists that never really were vocal, and now they're more vocal, and their fan base is getting vocal. So I feel like they're being more interested as well. So it's kind of like not that hard of a time, because celebrities are really talking about more things now. Like, they're giving us more than just one dimension. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm seeing people be kind of critical too, where almost like, because people like someone like Kim Kardashian or someone like Trey Songz is now getting more involved, and people feel like they're bandwagoning onto political topics. And I don't necessarily feel like that's a bad thing. Like, if being woke is supposed to be something that's just supposed to try to get somebody clout, fine. Because I feel like even if that person is using it, it still can help bring awareness and spark change in people people that are watching. So Joanna, do you agree with that? Like I've seen a lot of criticism, especially for media organizations that, you know, may normally only post about entertainment and now they're posting political. When you're pitching these stories and all of a sudden these celebrities are getting involved, are you finding that people are taking on or with the celebrities, or do you feel like they want you to stay away from that when they're saying yes what they want on their site or on their newspaper or on their TV show, or are you getting more pushback? What are you seeing?
So it's interesting because I started freelancing after COVID, but before that I was deputy editor at Hip Latina, which is a Latinx site. But because myself and the editor-in-chief were Black Latinas, we really made a point to always talk about these issues on the platform. And it was well received. But what I was concerned about freelancing, especially pitching to mainstream platforms like Allure, like Pop Sugar, that there was going to be pushback. But because, like you guys mentioned, it's become kind of a mainstream conversation with celebrities included, I almost feel like they're fearful of giving me any kind of pushback. So it's actually great, because anything that I've pitched regarding like anti-Blackness or what's going on now, like I'm not getting the kind of pushback I think I would have probably gotten in January or February.
Right. Which is insane, because I know, obviously you guys know that I work for a mainstream organization, and for me in media, I've only worked for what's considered mainstream. So pitching stories from the Black perspective has always been challenging, because I remember pitching something with Taraji P. Henson like 5 years ago before Empire started, and had someone tell me she wasn't A-list and that it wasn't a good story. And so, but for me, you know, I've known Taraji when it was Baby Boy and, you know, the Tyler Perry movies. She's always been A-list to me. So it's interesting to see this shift now, because it's almost overwhelming, because now it's like not only are people seeking you out to get information, to be kind of like that gatekeeper to merge the two worlds. So Eunique, let me ask you, have you found it being a little like, this is almost what we've always wanted, but do you feel that it's genuine?
That's a great question, right? Like, is it genuine? I think that yes and no. You know, I give you an example. I live right outside of Washington, D.C., where the football team is the Washington Redskins, right? And so for years, we know that there has been pressure from the people for the Washington Redskins to change their name, right? Yeah. Whereas now you recently had FedEx, who is the sponsor of their stadium, talking about $100+ million.
Yep.
Say to them, you need to change your name because of the climate, right? So now the Redskins just issued a statement saying they're doing a review because of how people feel about the name. Well, that's disingenuous, because people have always made a point about the name being problematic and a slur. And I think we see the same thing from a media perspective, whether it's people that are in this posture of learning, whether it's people who are trying to consume more media from our sites, whether it's the stories that they're more open to being told. These stories have always had merit. They've always been important. They've always been valid, but people haven't had the pressure, whether it's by dollars or just by the attention and being ostracized, to really make it a priority. And so now that all eyes are on white supremacy and how it seeds itself into these different fields, of course, everyone is willing and wants to cover these types of stories. And so I do think a little bit of it is very disingenuous. I think that everybody loves to have a heart-to-heart when your racism is showing. And I think that people don't want to be on the wrong side of history in this moment. And I think that the onus is on us to do things like have a National Crown Day and to merge and to have conversations with other people who run Black media sites to figure out how do we capitalize and sustain moments like this.
Yeah, and that's a good question, is how do we do that? Because, you know, what we know right now, their specials are popping up. There are so many different, you know, people are posting solidarity, and we are changing our whole organization. And I think we saw a meme recently that was like, folks are acting like Black people just were created or racism just started.
Juneteenth just arrived this year. This is the first year of Juneteenth.
And knowing a lot of you guys and have worked with you in passing or been part of your organization, seeing it work, it's just kind of like, it's great that it's happening. I think there's a little bit of people feeling like, I mean, we've been telling y'all this. So, you Jasmine, talk to me a little bit about how do we merge these worlds? Because I see, we've had that conversation. I've seen the hashtag, like, my publicist is Black. Like, we've seen, almost like a surgence of people wanting to utilize a Black team, a Black publicist, because in the past we've seen stars walk the red carpet and Black media be ignored. How do we start to merge, without diluting Black media with what is considered mainstream media and also mainstream teams?
Well, I feel like it's a complicated conversation to have. It's something that my business partner, Meyer, and I, he co-owns the site, we've been having this conversation about how Black media is treated, and not even just on the carpet, just in terms of like who Black talent gives their exclusives to. And the thing is, it'd be one thing if they would give their exclusives to a site that didn't have as much traffic as like the Shade Room or the Jasmine Brand. I could understand it, but it's like, the way Black media is treated is like, they beg for us to cover them when they're like at a D-list level. And then when they get to like B, it's like, they don't want to, show any love, support. And it's like it's a take sort of situation. So that's frustrating. And then in terms of like, I see Black talent get to a certain level and they no longer have anyone Black on their team. They don't even have a Black attorney or a Black publicist. And it's just, to me, it's just kind of confusing. And it's a reflection of what goes on in other arenas, not just in Hollywood and entertainment. And it's super frustrating as someone that's in Black media who has the numbers to validate why we're here, why we're around. And your readers, they don't necessarily go to a trade publication to learn about your show. They're going to see about it on Instagram, see about it on their site. They're not going to Deadline. You know what I'm saying? Like, your audience isn't going to Deadline to hear about this new show. Like, that's the truth. And if sites like ours didn't cover it, no one would know about it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's an ongoing battle, and it's something that we kind of been dealing with internally, and we're working on a few things to kind of try to figure something out, because it's something that is super, super frustrating.
Angie, do you echo that sentiment as well?
Listen, she was telling all facts, okay, because she was really speaking it. I think that, it is true. We don't empower when they do have the budgets, when the labels have the budgets, empower them to empower Black media companies, because we are the ones, like she said, that are letting our audience know that your album is coming out. You know what I mean? And I think that it's this expectation that we have to work for free. Everything has to be free. Also, we're marginalized because we do celebrity news. So it's like, oh, we don't want to stop for you on the red carpet because you did this story about us, or you know what I mean, that I put out there. But E! News did it too. You know what I mean? And this TMZ did it too, and so it's like it almost feels like it, we can do the same, and like I said, we build up our artists. Like, we take them from before they're A-list, and we're pumping them and we're reporting on them, and it does have an impact on their careers, being able to blow up and be big like they are. And so I think that, like she said, we need to be empowered, and we need to realize how important and valuable the Black media companies are, because if we don't have any Black owned media companies, then our voice is in the hands of a community outside of us. You get what I'm saying? And like we said, with the Black people are not a monolith, we can have celebrity Black news companies. Like that's not a sin. You know what I mean? We can have them. And that's actually needed in this industry, for a lot of people. And so I think I totally agree with her. She was on the money with that.
Joanna, because I think freelancing is also interesting. It's an interesting space too when you're talking about these types of issues, because it's interesting to see when you're dealing with all these different organizations what they're interested in accepting with those pitches. What's been your experience, especially now in this climate, when you're pitching stories, what they want right now, and do you feel like it's merging with more mainstream organizations? Like, are they wanting really creative, interesting, like, content and really deep dives, or is it staying kind of surface for you?
It's interesting because kind of like what you were saying before, like how, like, is it a good thing that this has become like such a mainstream thing? Is it genuine? Because what a lot of freelancers are seeing right now, like, I'm part of like a group of other POCs that are freelance writers, and we're like, have you realized that every single outlet is putting call outs for like POC writers? They're looking for POC writers. Everybody's asking to pitch about Black Lives Matter. personal essays, features, or whatever. So they're actually scouting us out. So it's interesting because now it's actually been easier than ever to pitch mainstream outlets this kind of content. But then there is a frustration to it because it's like, if I would have pitched you 6 months ago, would you have even accepted my pitch? You know, and not even just because I want to write about like anti-racism or anti-blackness, but because I'm not a white writer. Right. And one of the conversations that's still being had now too is also in terms of how freelancers get paid.
Yes,
so I have gotten to a point where the pitches are being accepted, but I'm still finding the rates to be relatively low. You know, and then that gets tricky now too with COVID, because it's like, no, we just can't pay you this because we don't have the budget now because of COVID-19. And then you find out, wait, but this white writer got offered $350. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done, even in the freelance space, 100%.
See, we could get into a whole conversation about these pay rates because, you know, we could get into a whole conversation about that. And I know we only have a few more minutes left of everybody's time. Eunique, talk to me a little bit about where we go next, especially in Black journalism and covering entertainment and covering, you know, social issues, covering, you know, these people, officers getting arrested, the protests. Where do we see ourselves next? Because I feel like a lot of people have said, oh, your timelines are no longer, you know, this topic isn't trending anymore. People are getting back to normal. How do we keep this going?
I think a couple of things. One, I think we need like solidarity amongst Black media sites. I think that's really important. And I think that, I won't say it's missing, but it's nothing that we've had to proactively like or do, right? And I think that this time mandates that we actually reach across and say, like, Jasmine Brand, Shade Room, Blavity, whatever, like, how can we all work together to make sure that these stories are elevated, to make sure that, I mean, even when you talk about pay disparities, right? Like, the same thing happens from a media perspective. You might pay X amount of dollars to be on Because I'm Weekend or Shade Room, but a Refinery 29 might get, you know, 3-4 times that. So I think that solidarity is very important. And I think that it's also still important that we understand that it has to be a balance and a mix, right? I think that there's still news that's very relevant and important that needs to be elevated and amplified amidst all of these stories. And I think that we just have to figure out what that cadence is. Yeah. And that's challenging because these times aren't going away, and because there's so much more attention concentrated on our platforms because we're all home. Most of us are home, or we're not out and about as much as we used to be because we don't have that many options once we get off of work, right? And so we really have to, I think, find what the mix looks like and define what our new normal is in this environment. And
I think that's a great point, because we're kind of just almost like with social media, how social media kind of came in and changed the game in so many ways. And it does sound like we're kind of in this new space that we can kind of create, which is challenging, but also really empowering. Jasmine, can you speak really quickly about like how, you know, with this new space we're navigating, do you have a plan, or do you just say, you know what, I'm going to throw some things out there. We're going to see what sticks and just move as we go?
In terms of coverage?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we always try to kind of check the pulse of what's going on, what people are talking about, what's trending. And then we also try to bring things to light that maybe you're not going to get that much traffic or engagement, because it's still kind of like the responsible thing to do. So I feel like it's kind of a mix. You kind of, you know, you'll hear like, or see like little hidden stories of, you're like, wait a minute, people need to be talking about this. And then you'll you know, cover the obvious. So it's always kind of like a sort of mix. And we have to figure out, once things are so-called back to normal, how do we still continue to bring these issues to the forefront and still get people to care about them? Because one of my biggest fears is like, this is just a fad. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like the cool thing to do. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things I'm kind of like this is cool now, but are y'all gonna, you know, how are we gonna continue to keep this momentum? And everyone today has made really great points about some suggestions of how we can continue to do that, I think.
And I think there was go ahead, Eunique.
No, I also, Jasmine just made me think of something. I also think it's important to understand that like everybody's coverage is different, right? So like there are, like, for instance, on Because I'm Weekend, we would never cover like we might not put the story of George Floyd on our site. Like that might not be a story that we cover. But I think that we know writers on other platforms. We know we get stories all the time. People say you need to raise this, you need to amplify this. And so you also have to know that not what your lane is, but like what are you good at amplifying, right? What are the people coming to you for? Figure out what that mix is, but also because you don't cover something or it's not necessarily in your lane, like who are the other writers at other platforms who can elevate and amplify this as well, which is why I kind of spoke to the partnership amongst Black media sites, because it doesn't always mesh. It might not mesh on the Shade Room or a Botwick or a Jasmine Brand, but it might fit somewhere else. And so being able to kind of tap into those levers is important too. And understand you can't be all things to everybody.
Right.
And I don't mean to do this, but I have a question for you, because I feel like, Jasmine, like I feel like how do you, sometimes we have our audience will say, well, we want to be able to laugh. Just because we're going through this doesn't mean we can't laugh. It doesn't mean, because mentally it is hard to deal with. I'm telling you right now, being Black and being Black in America has always been hard. But right now you have the extra added, everybody asking you to teach them, about race and all of this type of stuff.
Right.
People, like I had my friend cry to me because her law firm she's a token, right? And so it's, to me, I feel like, we can laugh. We can, we can multitask. We can still elevate this story and still be able to entertain ourselves as well, because that's necessary for us, especially.
I think that's so true. And I think, and it goes to what you were saying about not everything being one thing. I think we have to be able to and I think it's okay for everybody else, but I feel like sometimes when it is Black people, there's a lot of specifics attached to what we need to cover and directions from people, and sometimes it's not that, it's whatever is moving in the moment. And I think unfortunately we have to end on that. We definitely have to make sure that we do a part 2 or expand on this more, because there's so many more things to talk about, and you guys have added such great conversations to this event, to National Crown Day, and it's been such a blessing to talk to all of you. I encourage everyone to follow all of these women, support these women, listen to these women, and make sure that you continue the conversation with them. We're going to have a small commercial break and we'll be back. Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody. Bye.